I am pleased to welcome John Hudson.
This is fun. Get to tell some stories. First, I love Montana. It is an amazing place to pioneer an idea. It cultivates risk and perseverance and possibility. In the summers, we explore the majesty of Glacier National Park and the expanse of Flathead Lake. In the fall, we endure 100-mile bike rides and hunt in the Bob Marshall Wilderness and paddle dragon boats. In the winter, we ski and ride Blacktail Mountain and the slopes of Whitefish. In the spring, it's raining too much. We stay inside and we drink coffee. But our coffee's even named after traders and explorers. Montana is all about pioneering. The Northwest is all about pioneering. But I have a confession to make, and I just gotta be honest. I'm a Southerner, y'all. In fact, my family is so Southern, my sister refuses to call me a Northwesterner. She'd prefer to call me Southern Canadian. Born in Atlanta, Georgia, raised in Birmingham, Alabama, and 6 years of architecture school in Charlottesville, Virginia. I lost my drawl, but I kept my y'all. But before there's any judging, that time in Virginia created a lifelong link to the Northwest. You see, Charlottesville is the home of Monticello, the home of Thomas Jefferson. And it was there that Jefferson commissioned Meriwether Lewis to go out to the Northwest and find a passage to the Pacific. So Monticello is the trailhead that leads to Montana all the way to the Northwest. So, as a young architecture student studying in Monticello, I was inspired. My favorite room was the hall where all the moose heads and the arrowheads and the maps were stored. Everything was there: architecture, democracy, and adventure. You see, I was standing at the trailhead of my life, a journey that would lead me to Montana. But today I want to share with you about a journey in pioneering and architecture for all. The problem was, as a young architecture student, so many pioneering architects had achieved the pinnacle of success, but had only gone there to die alone on the mountain, the lone genius. See, they had amazing buildings and amazing success, but no successors. Very few architects had pioneered a way for the next generation to move forward. Here's the question: how do we move forward in our passions, but do it in a way that can be shared with all? And this is not just limited to architecture. In all our lives, how do we structure our careers to serve as a foundation for the next generation to move forward? And here's the big idea. Here's the design. We are all designed so that our lives would be multiplied into the lives of others. Our lives are meant to be multiplied into the lives of others. But here's the risk. In order to go from one person to 100 to 1,000, to have exponential opportunity for impact, it requires dying to ourselves. Dying to ourselves. But I want to encourage you today to take that risk and take the first step forward. And so I'm going to share the journey. Before I was part of TEDx, I was part of Gen X. And we like to do our thing our own way and chart our own course. So in 1999, my wife and I found ourselves in Nepal. She was a licensed nurse, and I was an unlicensed architect that had just graduated. We worked there for 2 months, partnering with amazing organizations, and we wanted to stay long-term, stay another 2 years to work in this remote and rugged country. But a wise Nepali pulled us aside and said, okay, I know the language better than you. I definitely hike better than you. And with the great resources, you could help me reach my neighbors, and we can do this better than you. But the thing that you can do, the way that you can contribute is this: go back home and get your architecture license. Return with a team of professionals and partner with us. What we need are earthquake-resistant training facilities to raise up local leaders and equip them and empower them to go out into the mountains further than I could ever go and transform their own nation. It was daunting, because of this. An architecture internship is a minimum of 3 years working underneath another licensed architect, and at that time was followed by 9 exams and several $1,000s of expense. He was asking a big price, but it's worth it. And although I was disappointed to leave Nepal, he was right. We need to come back as a team. So my wife and I deferred our Nepali dream and went home to pursue my architecture license. Well, 3 years turned into 10 years. I got my license quickly, but the door never opened back up to Nepal. In fact, I found myself working on multi-million-dollar homes for affluent Americans, second, third vacation condos in Florida. I felt so far away from Nepal. But this concept hit me. Wait a second. In Nepal, they build with concrete. In Florida, they build with concrete. Florida is humid. Southeast Asia is tropical. And I could learn how to do these buildings. It'd be like being an architectural Robin Hood. I would design houses for the wealthy and store up the knowledge to serve the poor in the future. Brilliant. There are no villains in the story. It was just an opportunity to learn. This came to fruition immediately. Although never got back to Nepal in those 10 years, we were able to work in our back door. This isn't a Robin Hood project. Working with that firm, we were able to create a church and community center out of an ice skating rink. It was an amazing opportunity to apply architectural knowledge and work together with contractors and engineers and artists and volunteers. So imagine this, a church sanctuary where you can still see the arc of the ice skating rink. There's plexiglass still on the walls to let light in. And we took the hockey bleachers and cut them in half and split them open to reveal 30-year-old pine, and we lined the sanctuary walls with this. It was gorgeous. It was hipster before there was hipster. And people started coming from everywhere. And so it was a catalyst for community transformation, both physical and spiritual. And it gave another step forward. Since Nepal just wasn't opening up, we decided to invest into this community. And my wife and I were going to build the first green or LEED certified home in Alabama. It was going to be featured in a national magazine, and the mayor was going to be there for the ribbon cutting. But while we were in Florida on vacation, we got a call. Our house was on fire, flames hundreds of feet up in the air. And so we returned home and found our house devastated. I was devastated. Architect, you don't know what to say. It wasn't so much the materialism of it, it's just all that work lost, that dream once again deferred, put into the ground. I felt like my heart had been smashed and a boot put on it. But it got worse. The next month, I was laid off from my job as part of the recession. 2 months later, our 4th child was born. Then within that same month, started an architecture firm in the middle of the Great Recession. And within that year, our rental house was robbed, and all my wife's jewelry was stolen. You don't know how to move forward. But luckily, I had a friend, a pastor at the ice skating rink church. He said this, he said, don't ask why me? Instead, he said, ask what? What are you supposed to learn from this? The thing that came to mind was this Bible parable, and it's paraphrased by Montana native Eugene Peterson in The Message. It's this: unless a grain of wheat is buried in the ground and is dead to the world, it is never more than a grain of wheat. One architect, one person. But if it's buried, it sprouts and reproduces itself many times over. To be honest, I was in survival mode. It didn't quite hit me what's going on here, but I did learn this. Despite a fire, despite a layoff, despite losing possessions and jewelry, I was worthy in the eyes of God. I had value to step forward. I was more than the American dream. There's something on the other side of feeling like you're just deep in the ground. So, a small architecture firm moved from nursery into a studio with 5 people, and we got some momentum moving forward. We were able to design some projects with some great clients. We were able to be featured in some magazines locally and even won a design award. And the Robin Hood principle was in full swing. We were able to design another funky church, another community center, and help out with Habitat for Humanity. In fact, one of our friends from the ice skating rink had moved to Montana and was working with Youth with a Mission in Lakeside and asked us to come out and do a pro bono master plan to turn the old Air Force base into a modern training center to send young people out all over the world. So the Robin Hood thing was moving forward, getting a little bit more international. So, while I was on the airplane, one of our interns, has just been an amazing friend and trustworthy coworker in the process, was asking, okay, we got our little band of Robin Hood and the Merry Men. How are we going to move forward? What's the career opportunity for me? How am I going to be an architect? So I now represent the licensed architect with the blue dot. How are we going to pass it on to him? What's his future? And I realized as I was leading the way of something that's pretty amazing, I was still getting in the way. There's no career advancement for our intern to take charge, to take the lead. And so while in Montana, this thought came, what if you flipped the whole pyramid? What if your job was actually to make the next generation succeed? And that was the sole focus of your business. What if your license was to propel a whole new generation of architects to move forward? So I returned to Alabama and began to dismantle my private firm. We took the name off the door and we created 100-fold Studio, a daily reminder of our architectural purpose. Yes, we're going to make great buildings that stand and they're safe and are beautiful, but we hope to make great people 10 years from now. They're going to be leaders in industry and making change in their communities. So this concept started with one intern and it multiplied to 4 to 8. And Montana is an amazing way to recruit interns. You see the seasons pass. The landscapes blended with our growth. And eventually, over the past 5 years, we have trained over 30 interns, students, and architects and staff representing 16 different universities. Now, some stay with us and some go on their own way to places like Montana State and to Yale. And some go on to be their class president, and others go home to become mothers. We're proud of every one of them, and we feel that we've empowered them not only to work in the nonprofit sector, but to go back into their schools and make a difference, and then go back into the workforce, and who knows what kind of change they'll make in the market. And the way we trained them was to create places of change. We would design campuses in developing countries that would train local leaders and empower them to make a difference in their own communities. We'd serve everyone. We found ourselves in complicated parts of the world. We were working for both Israelis and Palestinians. We're working in East Africa. We're working in Cambodia, places that are emerging from civil war and conflict, but are inherently beautiful. I want to tell you about Cambodia. Came over there to design a campus, and I found myself sitting next to Yuka. Yuka had taught himself English and was a child emerging from the aftermath of the Khmer Rouge genocide. Most of his country is under the age of 15. There's no teachers, there's no mentors. But Yuka knew this, that he was worth something. We had gone to a meeting where we were going to kick everything off, and they said, tell the person next to you, what are you grateful for? And I was going to say, I just got a 4x4 truck, and I can plow through the Montana snow. I was so excited. But Yuka had turned and said, yes, I'm worthy. And I kept my mouth shut. Because what I realized, the way to be friends with Yuka and to serve him and to reinforce that worth was not to talk about the American dream, but was to partner with him and turn a rice paddy, 13 acres of water, into a future campus that would train his countrymen and empower him to change his world. So I put together a napkin sketch, essentially, and this was passed around. It went to local leaders, it went to landowners, and it went to the governor. And they were so impressed by the Cambodians' leadership and the way they were changing the community. They say they gave the thing at a bargain discount. And people got behind this idea, and they began to move forward. So the Cambodians would take off wedding rings and sell their vehicles and give sacrificially, and they got $10,000 together. And that $10,000 turned into $20,000 with somebody else matching it. And it was matched to $40,000. It was matched all the way to $750,000 of sacrificial giving. And they bought the land, and they filled it up with dirt, and it began to move forward. So we had to move forward. We had to start designing dormitories and cafeterias and training centers. And I began to realize this looks a lot like the condos in Florida. The Robin Hood concept was coming together. They broke ground last month. A band of 75 people, and including one of our Montana interns, is living over there right now, partnering with them. Amazing. And they're united in one vision: to train 10,000 or 1,000 students a day in English and vocational skills and principles to rebuild their nation. And this is what they believe. This is going to be the second largest training facility and the second largest city in all of Cambodia. And here's their goal: to transform one nation in one generation. And this story is being repeated around the world, again, in places like Zambia and Israel and Palestine, high schools and for orphans, leadership training centers. And yes, we did return to Nepal in 2013 to design an earthquake-resistant training facility so that the Nepalis could go into the mountains further than we could ever go. And yes, we returned as a team, not 2 this time, but 20. I want to report that our friends in Western Nepal are safe, but they still need that earthquake-resistant facility even more. I'm humbled that we're working all over the world. How does a small architecture firm in Montana have relationships with amazing people in so many nations? I wish it was my TED idea, but it's part of a larger truth. Anyone who holds on to life just as it is destroys that life. If we are obsessed with our own idea, our own work, our own insecurities, our own fame, our own privacy, we're going to squeeze life so hard that we won't let go. We'll die alone on the mountain. But if you let go, reckless in your love, you'll have it forever, real and eternal. What if we thought about our ideas as ways to move the next generation forward? I love it. Let it go. Be reckless in your love. Create businesses. Create families in order to let the next generation flourish. Not just a license, but everyone benefits. It's multiplied beyond the lone genius. To bring it back to Big Sky Country, here is a performance center for Native Americans and tribal groups in Polson, and in the middle of it stand our intern architects. And they asked us one question as students: how do you take this risk? How do you move forward? How did you go from Monticello all the way around the globe to Montana? And the answer is this: it's confidence. But it isn't self-assurance or pride or swagger. It's actually the opposite. Confidence comes from a Latin word that's composed of 2 words: con, meaning with, and fido, meaning faith. Confidence actually means moving forward with faith. It's the ability to go into the unknown, what's unsure and dark, and know that there's something good on the other side. It's the principle of the seed going into the ground, dying to itself, because it knows it's going to emerge 100-fold. So go with confidence. Let go of your own life. Love recklessly. It doesn't have to be a global nonprofit. It doesn't have to be an act that comes through a house burning down. But it's the daily choices we can make. I look at our interns and I look at my daughters. What will they be in 10 years? And that's the vision that I want to invest in. And then I'm reminded how we do that on a daily basis. How do we show kindness and encouragement to one another? How do we love recklessly? It's a challenge. It's a challenge to move forward. But think about how you can do it in your own life. If you had a logo that would remind you every day that you were designed to be multiplied in service to life for others, what would it be? I'll offer this. As we head down the trails in Montana, I want to put one simple sign on the trailhead of life. It's y'all. Say it often. It's beautiful. It's simple. It's you plural. It's you multiplied. It's you inclusive. It's you having the confidence to surrender yourself in service of all. And here's the joy. Here's the beauty. It keeps those close to you, engages those close to you, but it makes room for the people you don't even know. It makes room for an aspiring architect. It makes room for a future Cambodian leader. It makes room for an earthquake survivor in Nepal. And it made room for a southerner arriving in Montana. Thank you all.